Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for staying on. We're just having a couple of technical difficulties, so we appreciate your patience. We will get you Melanie as soon as possible. But I just wanted to say a few words about our amazing speaker. She's definitely worth the wait. She is a resource teacher from Montreal, Quebec, with she's here. Yes, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction, Melanie. With 22 years of experience in education across various grades and specialized programs. So she's one of our own, homegrown. And for the past 12 years, she's served as a resource teacher, supporting students with diverse learning needs and working closely with classroom teachers to strengthen literacy practices. I know that she'll talk about her own experience when she gets on here, but her own son has been diagnosed with dyslexia, and she's transformed her instructional approach from balanced literacy to an evidence-based, aligned, structured literacy. She is Orton Gillingham trained. Oh, here she comes. Yeah. And a CERI structured literacy teacher committed to translating research into practical classroom ready instruction. She is the founder of Soar with Dyslexia, a platform dedicated to equipping educators and families with research-based literacy resources, and the founder of Decoding Dyslexia Quebec. I mean, how lucky are we to have such an amazing teacher in our system? A grassroots movement advocating for systemic change and improved support for individuals with dyslexia. So she's a recipient of the 2023 Dyslexia Teacher of the Year Award and the 2024 Dyslexia Canada Excellence Award. As both a teacher and a parent, Melanie brings a powerful dual perspective to her work, bridging research and lived experience to ensure that fewer students fall through the cracks and that every child has an effective, equitable reading instruction. So without further ado, Melanie, welcome, and I'll let you take the mic. Thank you so much for being here today.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just going to share my slides. I have a lot open because a few technical difficulties, but I'm so happy that I'm here. So just if everybody can bear with me, I need to send a request to share. Can everybody see my screen? Is that better?
That's
Okay, great.
perfect.
Okay, excellent. All right. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Melanie, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. What an incredible 2 days of learning we've just experienced. And I'm so honored to be asked to be closing this conference. It's almost a pinch me moment. I'm so grateful to be learning alongside all of you and such incredible panel of presenters. They were incredible. I want to begin by thanking the organizers for creating such a meaningful and accessible event. The fact that this conference was free matters. When professional learning is accessible, more educators can be part of that conversation, and that is equity in action. Equity means removing those barriers so more people have access to learning and the tools and the support they need. In literacy, it also means making sure every student has access to instruction that gives them the best chance to become a successful reader. Thank you all for being here, because conferences like this are not only about learning, they are about connection, reflection, and what we choose to do next. Today, Daniel Thompson and Terry Nolan really set the tone. It was fantastic. Their keynote was a powerful reminder that change does not happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. It takes years to build, refine, and truly implement what works. And what stood out most to me was that the idea our knowledge has to outpace curriculum tools. We cannot rely on programs alone as well. We have to understand the why behind what we do. And that learning takes time, but that is how real and lasting change can happen for our students. And I'm going to circle back to our first day. were Dr. Stephanie Stoller's presentation. There were so many powerful takeaways, but one quote really stood out with me was, "We know too much to be failing so many." And it made me stop and think, what do we actually know? For many of us, that depends on our journey and what I often call going down the science of reading rabbit hole. You may have learned that there is that large body of research on how we learn to read and research that has been around for decades. And many of us, including myself, were really never taught how to explicitly teach reading in our university programs. And if that was your experience, like mine, that's one thing. But if it wasn't your experience, that's going to bring us to the next slide. For so many of us, learning how to teach reading really depended on what often call, and I've heard this in literacy circles, the professor lottery, the teacher lottery. Some of us were lucky. We had professors who understood the research and gave us the tools we needed, but many of us didn't. And our students shouldn't have to rely on luck either, because when we don't get what we need, it doesn't stop with us. It shows up in our classrooms and impacts our students we teach. I always include this in my presentations for mostly almost all of them. No blame and no shame. This matters so much because we are all learning. This isn't about what you know or don't know, or what I know or I don't know, or your colleague next to you. It is about being open to learning and growing. Every one of us is on a journey, and that goal is simply to keep moving forward for our students. Everything that I'm sharing with you today, I did not know just 5 years ago. And I want to briefly share that journey with you. I'm a full-time elementary resource teacher with the Riverside School Board. I've been teaching for 22 years across many grade levels. I've done the specialized program, the regional programs that we have. And for most of my career, I did not have the knowledge I needed to reach all of my students in literacy. Today, I know more, and I'm still learning every single day. This learning did not come from a course that I took or from an early professional development, although I wish that happened. It came from asking questions, digging deeper, and doing the work myself. And it all began at my kitchen table. This is my son, Benjamin. And here I'm doing an Orton Gilliam lesson. Can you see I had a transition, but it seems to not be working. He is now 15. But I knew early on that something was not right. He struggled to learn to read, to learn his letters and his sounds. And I watched him struggle not only academically, but socially and emotionally in many ways educators don't always see unless they have a child or a family member or who've lived it themselves. It broke my heart to watch him begin to dislike school, and it started really as early as grade 2. But when Ben was diagnosed with dyslexia, severe dyslexia at the age of 9.5, everything began to change. I remember watching a Dyslexia 101 webinar after he was diagnosed, and for the first time, I heard about the science of reading, structured literacy, Orton Gilliam, evidence-based instruction, and universal screeners. That moment literally changed my life. I went on to take that 60-hour Orton Gilliam course during COVID, of all times, and Ben became my student. They don't usually allow that, but it was during COVID, which I do not recommend most people doing, working with their own child. But almost immediately, I saw the difference this approach made, not only for him, but also in my own teaching. This journey led me to start a Decoding Dyslexia Quebec chapter to help parents navigate this journey. And then I created the Soar with Dyslexia on my social media to help parents and teachers. I carry a lot of mom and teacher guilt because if I had known what I know now, I could have had support of him sooner. I don't want to get too emotional. But over the years, I've watched Ben grow into this confident student, and he began to believe in himself. And he reminds me that every day a child deserves the right to read, and that is what I want for every student, and I'm sure that's what you want for your students as well. Students know, as we all know in the classroom or as a resource teacher, they know early on that they're struggling. They notice when reading feels hard and when others finish first, or when school starts to feel stressful instead of safe, and that is why the social emotional piece matters so much as well. When we think of other professions, medicine, nursing, psychology, you expect them to evolve with the research and the science. We wouldn't accept outdated practices when there is clear evidence showing a better way. And yet, in education, that hasn't always been the case. What the quote reminds me of is that we can't ignore what the science is telling us, even when it challenges what we were taught or what have always done in our classrooms or what we believe. Because just like in any other field, our practices need to evolve if we want better outcomes for the people we serve, and for us, that's our students. The question on the left connects directly to Nancy Young's ladder of reading. She's Canadian. This is a quote also from Lindsay Kemeny, who has several books out there, which I highly recommend, like Seven Mighty Moves. And all students learn to read through the same processes. Reading is not natural, it needs to be explicitly taught, but not all students learn the same rate or with the same ease. Some students seem to pick it up with less instruction. We've all had those students who could read like chapter books in kindergarten, but that's a small percentage. The majority of our students need explicit, systematic instruction, and there is a significant group who struggle without it. When we look at that 60% on that chart, this is not the latter reading, by the way, I needed the copyright, but this is based on it. It is not just a number, that 60%. It represents real students in our classroom who are not being reached when instruction isn't aligned with how the brain learns to read. And that is why this matters so much. Steve Dykstra talks about this idea of bullseye science. There are things that we know with a high level of confidence based on decades of research, that those things that belong at the center of our instruction, things like explicit teaching, systematic phonics, phonemic awareness, and fluency. This is the bullseye that what we know works. And at the same time, there are still questions that there are areas where research is evolving, and that is okay. You do not have to change everything at once, but you can start by making sure that you're doing as close to the bullseye as possible. So as you leave today and think about the things that you can shift, one thing you can bring closer to the center, because this is how change happens with one intentional step at a time. Sold a Story, if you haven't heard of it, it's amazing. It is a powerful podcast by investigator reporter Emily Hanford that looks at how many schools embraced reading approaches that were not aligned with how children actually learn to read. In many cases, we were sold a story. It gave language to what so many educators and parents had been seeing and helped spark really important conversations about reading instruction. I highly recommend listening to it. And if you have not, it's amazing. Where are we in 2026? Teachers are being asked to meet today's needs with yesterday's literacy framework. And when Dr. Una Malcolm showed us what was happening across Canada, and we started to see movement in many provinces, for example, in Ontario, we're seeing more concrete steps, including mandatory early screening from K to 2 using such tools as Acadience, along with an updated curriculum. And as I was listening, I knew there was not much happening here in Quebec yet. I think many of us are sitting on the edge of our seats, hoping to hear bigger changes were coming here too. And there have been changes. I've seen it, but it's a little bit slower than other provinces because there is more talk and growing awareness, but we are still waiting for those larger system shifts. But the reality is we do not have to wait. We already know enough to begin making changes in our own classrooms right now. I did, and the impact has been huge. The slide comes from Dyslexia Canada webinar. It was supposed to pop in the coming soon, but it gives us a snapshot of literacy changes happening across Canada. And when you clicked on Quebec, it said coming soon. I was shared this 2024 report looking at growing concerns about the literacy in Quebec's English sector. And I'm really speaking about English sector because that's more my expertise. It examined the current elementary ELA program through research, curriculum analysis, surveys, interviews, and focus groups. And in other words, this was not just one opinion. It brought together research, curriculum documents, and educator voices. One of the key findings was that those foundational reading skills are not clearly referenced in the program. For me, this is significant because if these foundations are not clearly named in a curriculum, teachers are left to figure out the path on their own. It can feel like a choose your own adventure, even though we already know there is stronger, clearer path grounded in research, professional learning, and evidence-based programs. The issue that the language in our Quebec English language arts curriculum is it's so broad and vague. And this bullseye science we now know matters so much, it's not clearly laid out in there. When foundational skills, as I mentioned, are not clearly named, they can be easily missed, and that affects what gets taught, what gets prioritized, and what students receive. The most fundamental responsibility of schools is teaching students to read. Quote is by Dr. Louisa Moats, and this was on the cover of that 2020 report. This alone says a lot. We have a huge responsibility, but it reminds us that teaching reading is one of the most important responsibilities schools have because reading affects every part of a child's academic, social, and emotional life. So we don't have to leave here and change everything at once. I would definitely not recommend that. But we know that it takes years. We can start by taking one step, trying one shift, or bringing back one important idea. But if there was one thing that I would hope you go back to your schools is de-implementation. We heard that word today. We have to be willing to let go of practices that we now know are not helping students learn to read. That is often where real change begins. It is not about adding more to our plates that are every day. There's more and more added to it. It's about making space for better and more effective instruction. I'm going to share a few resources with you over the next few slides that you can bring back to your school. The image on the left is a powerful reminder that we need to look at our practices again with a critical eye. On the right is the Reading League's curriculum evaluation guide, which gives us practical ways to look more closely at some practices. And it will tell you those red flags that are not aligned and the green flags that we should be implementing. Stephanie Stoller shared this as well on her first day. And this is the Science of Reading Defining Guide. There are so many misconceptions out there about the science of reading that this is just a fantastic resource, and it's also available in French. And teaching reading is rocket science. It is complex. It is not something we pick up, not through osmosis. It requires deep knowledge and understanding. And this is one of my most favorite quotes by Dr. Reed Lyon, really bringing us back to what matters. When we're working on something as critical as a child's life, belief systems are not enough. We need to rely on evidence. And that's exactly what his 10 maxims outline. You can download it, and there's 10 things about how we teach reading, what decades of research have taught us about how children learn to read. And just as research changes, he's actually, I heard, updating these 10 maxims. This is a great quote by Kareem Weaver. I'm a huge quote girl. If our instruction is not helping the greatest number of students succeed, then this is not truly equitable. Equity is not just about access, it is about outcomes. And without strong evidence-based literacy instruction, there can be no real equity. This is the work in front of us, and this is why, again, it matters. And today, if you heard Molly Ness, who is fantastic, that book, I highly recommend it. All of them I recommend from Scholastic. They're really good. Thank you for all the work that you are doing every day to change kids' brains because nothing could be more important. Thank you for being here, for learning, reflecting, and doing the important work. If you'd like to explore the resources that I shared and a million more, you can go. There's a QR code with my link tree. And if you want to check out social media or give me a follow on Sword with Dyslexia, I love sharing free resources with teachers. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Melanie, for closing out our day. It was the perfect wrap up to the last 2 days of amazing presenters and definitely adding you on the list to that. Your personal story was powerful. And I think just your own personal journey with the amount of work that it takes and, that reflection and change. So thank you so much again to Melanie and to everyone today who was here. This has been an amazing 2 days, and I just want to thank everyone from the bottom of our hearts for the people who organized this, that you guys showed up, came and stayed. So we really appreciate it, and we hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks. Good afternoon,
Thank
everyone.
you.